This is Public Report, a public affairs presentation of KTBW. The opinions expressed in this program does not necessarily reflect the views of the Trinity Broadcasting Network.
Hi, thank you for joining me on Public Report. I'm Tanny Jackson, and today we're talking about homelessness. What is homelessness? Is it the person sleeping on a park bench, in their car, under the bridge? Today we have two awesome guests to talk more about this, and they are Elizabeth Hamilton and Wendy Sundstrom. And we're talking about homelessness. What is homelessness?
Homelessness, today has evolved so much. Even women and children are out there today. And a lot of the teens are out there, coming from abuse situations. And, single mothers out there with their children because they couldn't make the rent or they couldn't make the lights and the water and things got behind.
So when you say out there, they're living on the streets? On the streets.
Yes. And there's so many children out there now, school-age children. They talked about over 3,000 children, school-age children, get out of school, go to in the streets or in a car, sleeping in cars. These are terrible conditions. And this is what our outreach ministry focus on.
Homeless. Mm-hmm. Do you have statistics?
There's actually 10,000 in our region alone of homeless people. And, and that's just women.
That's just women.
That's just women.
Do you find that there are more women with children, with little children out there now?
Yes.
The problem's growing.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the greatest challenges for homeless people?
The greatest challenge is to get information, Once they're out there, they get stuck, and I feel they need people to help them through it, walk them through it. For instance, I had someone that was homeless. They had no ID. They lost all their ID. They had no birth certificate or none of that, none of those credentials. They had no Social Security card. And it's important that we come and walk beside them to help them get that back. So I've helped people to go and get their Social Security cards again and get their birth certificates and all of that. And because all of those things are lost and it makes them feel like they're nothing, but to have those in their hands again, they feel like they're part of society again. So the challenge is that they do need people to help them, walk them through that because the information sometimes is hidden. A lot of people don't know how to, bring that information to them and to help them rebuild. And that's why we step in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of them looking for jobs and why can't they get jobs like the average person?
Well, a lot of times, when they're out there on the streets, they're so beat up and beat down until, they don't have the confidence to walk into a place and ask for a job. Or either, the means, like when you have teeth missing and things like that, it doesn't give you any kind of encouragement to go in and ask for a job. And the clothing, for its clothing, they don't have the proper attire to get the job, So it's very hard for them to apply themselves for a job, to prepare for a job.
What about the shelters?
The shelters, there's a lot of transitional housing now. There's a lot of shelters now, but they all have waiting lists. Mm-hmm. They turn away people every night. Mm-hmm. And the one gal I talked to down in Seattle that had transitional housing, she said they get 300 women a night with children.
300 women
a night.
300?
That number is amazing.
Lot. So, and that's just one shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Do they feed them?
Yeah, most of them are fed two times a day. Yeah.
I saw a guy on internet, someone took a picture of a man, he was sitting there and he looked sad, he was sitting down, legs propped up, and he had a sign that said, "We'll take verbal abuse in exchange for change." Why would someone go there with a sign like that? What's he thinking?
A lot of people think that homeless want to be out there, And that's not true. There are some that do. I can't say that that's not there, but most of the people are there because of circumstances beyond their means. They couldn't do anything about it, and now they're out there and they don't have, you know, they're so beaten down, they're depressed, they don't know how to get back up. And unless they have people to show them love and acceptance and help them through the transitional period.
Are there programs out there, say that they're looking for a job, is there a program that they can just get involved with to help?
You know, there's Fusion here in Federal Way that has an awesome program, but they have to be willing. And, you know, there are some people that aren't willing, but they have to be willing, but they put them in condominiums and, you know, separately. So they're not looked at as homeless, you know, going into a program. They go in there and they can better themselves. They have to pay, you know, they have to get a job. They have to pay at least 30% to Catholic Services, but the other, they have to pay 50% of their utilities. But other than that, they got 2 years in these condominiums to get back on their feet again. But there's more that they need. They also need emotional help, you know, to get through sometimes mental illness, sometimes PTSD. You got veterans out there too.
You know, on homelessness, you know, just like flood and disasters, this is a disaster. So they've called a state of emergency. And like Wendy said, they have like over 10,000 people now. You know, if you add them up, the ones in the shelters, the ones on the streets, and the ones in the mental facilities add up to 10,000 people here in, you know, Pierce County. And so that's just, you know, that's unbelievable.
That's
a lot
of people.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and it's so real. You know, I work downtown at a law firm, and on my breaks I walk uphill from Pacific to Tacoma Avenue. On that whole strip, people are laid out. And on Tacoma Avenue, right there, you know, right about 2 blocks from the police station, they're laid out there in the mornings. So they have to leave, get up, pick up their bed, and move somewhere else when the business opens up. So that's just terrible. And I was walking up the hill one day, side by side with this young man. Looked like he's about 13 or 14 years old. He had to fold up and pick up his bed and move it to another facility. And I watched him, and he's like walked down into a little hole and to lay his bed. And I talked to him for a few minutes, you know, and to tell him he was worthy. You know, to try to, you know, to just tell him someone loves him, you know, that God has made him fearfully and wonderfully, and he is worth something. But, you know, these are terrible conditions. I never thought that it would be like this so fast, so quickly, you know? And we talked to people last weekend, last Friday, we went to bring out food. I should tell you, this woman has a heart of gold. She always fills up, or she'll bring blankets, nice blankets, pillows, you know, scarves and gloves and things like that. And we went out last Friday to feed the people. And because they can't get the meals, you know, until a certain time. So they're hungry in between. You know, if they don't make it to the place, they don't get anything to eat at all. And so we talked to some of the ladies, and it was a lady that had been out there for 27 years. Yeah. And then I talked to another lady, she had been out there for 20 years.
Why so long?
They get stuck. You know, it's like, being homeless is like you're out there and you just don't know how to get back home. You have a home, but you don't know how to get back, you know? And there's a lot of mental illnesses out there as well. You know, and so it's a big problem. There.
Also addiction issues. There's addiction issues out there.
Yes.
So, you know, a lot of the ones that I take care of, you know, they'll tell me they've been on the corner for, you know, just for money to get, you know, a fix. So ultimately, you want to be careful about giving them money. You know, at least my ministry doesn't give out money because, you know, for those issues, we have to be careful. Okay. It's better to give out gift certificates and call your public utilities and say, hey, you know what, I want to pay for someone's light bill. I want to pay for someone's water bill. It's wonderful. Keep them from getting homeless in the first place.
Even giving certificates for food?
Yes.
Okay. What are some of the dangers of being homeless?
They suffer abuse and beatings. They suffer bad language. You know, people putting them down for being there. You know, acting as if they want to be there. And
Yeah, they're so scarred. You know, I've talked to ladies that had been raped out there and had to sell their bodies and being beaten, you know, and terrible situations they live in out there on the streets.
And then with the weather changing,
Yeah.
what are some of the dangers?
Well, people die on the street because of getting too cold. I mean, their whole body shuts down and they're just gone. And, you know, the statistics with that.
64 people died last year in Seattle on the street. 64 people.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of
That
people.
is.
We have a big problem. What's the solution?
Well, like I said, the mayor has called for a state of emergency, so we just pray that they follow through with this, you know, and once they get that in, it's going to be a little relief, but people need to be informed. And that's why we gather up a lot of information so we can hand out to people so they'll know where to go and what to do. Okay, and we have a website, it's greaterfaithoutreach.com, and they can get a little information there.
Okay. Good.
Other thing is we would like to, you know, hopefully get some collaboration between, you know, joint effort between the government and the nonprofits so that we can, you know, get a facility. You know, there's plenty of transitional facilities out there, but there's still people on waiting lists. We need one more, you know, and maybe we need more than that. But another transitional facility is definitely needed. You know, if people are sleeping on the sidewalk still, we need transitional housing. We need affordable rent. This is another thing that's putting people on the streets again because they can't pay their rent and then they end up homeless. So the cycle has to be stopped.
I agree. The government's helping. They're looking at seeing what
Well,
they
they're
can do.
looking at that. The mayor just declared that.
How can the
about
community get involved?
10 days ago.
How can the community get involved?
Well, like Wendy said, you know, if we just get the information and if everybody just dig and look and find the information, and when you see a person on the street, hand them a flyer.
Yes.
You know, hand
blanket?
them that. Yeah, a blanket, a flyer,
Blanket.
something to eat, you know. Yeah, just do that, you know, and that'll help tremendously, you know, if we just get the information and give them the information that they need and where to go.
Exactly. And, you know, when I was researching, you know, about the different programs and resources, there was a lot of them, you know, wonderful resources for them. But, you know, the people on the streets can't get to that. So as she said, we
have to
need to
bring
start
it to them.
passing out these pamphlets so they can be informed, so they know that there is help for them. But one of the key things is having a public restroom. In downtown,
need that.
right downtown in every city, we need a public restroom that provides some shower facilities, some public lockers, so we can make them feel like they're valuable for, you know, to us. You know?
Ladies, thank you. I really commend you for your work and what you're doing. Thank you for joining me today on Public Report. Until
Thank
next
you for
time, and
having
thank you
us.
for joining me.
Where do you think you're going?
Is your body holding you back?
I want to go running. Not with that knee, you're not. I'm fine. Negative.
Your bones and joints can say no at any age.
With that shoulder, you're gonna pick up that truck. Really?
Keeping you from working, playing, or just plain moving.
Let's not pick her up. What do you say?
Yet a lot of people who live with pain fight back.
Use your head. Save your back. My bride, my rules.
And regain their lives.
You gotta be kidding me.
I'm going running. I'm going running.
Got to see this. Come on, pick it up.
Fight for your mobility. Find your own inspiration at anationinmotion.org. A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
Come on. I'll take it from here.
Hi, I'm Tanny Jackson. Thank you for joining me on Public Report. Today I'm talking to Wendy, Sundstrom, and Elizabeth Hamilton, and we're talking about women incarcerated. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
I want to start with you, Wendy, on this. Can you kind of share a little background?
Well, I started out going to the mission down in Seattle, Union Gospel Mission, and understood a lot of the homeless there and their needs. And then God brought me back out on the streets. And so I did Bread of Life Mission there and Union Gospel Mission for about 4 or 5 years.
And now you're working in the
And now
prison
I'm
with
working
women.
back in the streets and prison ministries.
And Elizabeth, this is your ministry. This is your heart, your passion. Can you
Yes.
share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I've been going to the prisons for 6 years now, and it's been such an eye-opening thing to me because we see more women now coming into prison than ever. But we go out there on a quarterly basis. I used to go out every month. Me and Chaplain Cannon, we'd go out every month to minister to the women, but now it's a quarterly, and we take people out there with us. And we see the hearts of these ladies, you know, and it just touches my heart. Every time I go out there, you know, we see more and more changes in these ladies. They come in hardcore and, you know, hopeless and suicidal, but once we come in there and give them hope and share with them the love of God and things like that, you can see their countenance changing. You know, there's people out there, they're jewels. It's a lady out there, she's been writing books. She's on her second book right now.
Incarcerated?
Yeah, incarcerated. And this book is to help other women not to go down that path that she went down. So this is why we go. My heart's there because, you know, it could have been me. I have 2 daughters, you know what I'm saying? So I just, you know, just want to help, you know, help them not to make this a cycle, not to make this a revolving door in and out, you know, to reach their purpose and destiny in life. And we want to help be a part of that.
So why are so many going to prison now? What's the problem?
Well, it's a lot of reasons. You know, I found with 2 of the major things I believe is sometimes there's not a father in the home, and the parents of women are trying to carry the load by themselves. And someone will come along. I've talked to ladies out in the prison. Someone will come along and say, you know, you can make a little bit of quick money, fast money. You know, they end up selling drugs or embezzling funds here and there, you know, and they're ended up in prison because they're trying to keep that lifestyle going that they had. Like my mom used to say, a pot of beans and a little love can go a long way, you know? But that's a problem. And another problem is the hurts. You know, they feel like they're not worth anything. So who's going to care if I get in trouble and go to jail anyway, you know? But yeah, it's a lot of hurt and unforgiveness and pain. You know, women have been raped and they've given up. So they feel like if I go do something, I'll just end up in prison. You know, at least I'll have a bed, you know?
That's sad.
It's sad. It's really sad.
Are there more mothers, are you noticing?
Yes, it's more mothers. I want to touch on this and then let Wendy talk. But yeah, it's one young lady that was out there. She had 6 children. And she looks to be like 16 herself, right? But she had 6 children. And it was so sad. And she didn't know where her children were. And we prayed, and and I kind of shared my situation because I know what it means to have a child that's out there and you don't know where they are. Because my son was lost for years. But anyway, but he's back home, and she wanted us to help her find her children because they were scattered. 6 children scattered, not knowing where they're at. I mean, that's devastating. Yeah. And so now they're together, the kids have been found, you know, and, you know, it's just a blessing to see these things happen while they're in prison, you know, because that's the hard thing, having children, you know, while you're in prison. You have children out there, they're open to pray, you know, anything could happen. And yeah, so we try to comfort them, you know, and they can write us. They also write us, and we can give them information and help, you know, get these children back, help get those children back home.
Now, the statistics on women, and it's astounding. There was 1 million women last year in prison.
That's a lot of
and
women.
And that's United States. 90,000 in local prisons and correction facilities or on probation.
Where do they go once they're released from prison?
And that's where we try to step in, you know. Well, they have information. They have classes they go to, different courses they can take while they're in prison, and they give them information there. But to follow up, we like to, try to follow up. So we ask them to write us or email us because, even in prison, they have email now. And here in Federal Way, in the federal prison, they have email as well. But they can email us and we can just give them the information and help them to get where they need to go. Because once they get out, they're going to be bombarded, with old friends and, a lot of things is going through their mind at that time. So we try to walk with them, to help them to transition, because it's been a few people that went out and got into the work release program, and they would call and ask, could you help us? I need to get out a certain place. So I go down and sign them out, take them, if they want to go to church or whatever, they ask to go to church, we'll take them to church or help them find a job. But we assist them, we walk with them. You know what I'm saying? Because it's hard. Once you get out, it's a whole different thing. You're inside that. Inside there, you're safe and you have the information, the tools that you need. But once you're out, you have to use those tools. And I encourage those women to use the tools that they've gotten while they're in there, because they have information and tools there.
But is it hard to get a job once they're released?
Oh, it's hard because some of them have criminal backgrounds, like felons and things like that. It's a little bit, but they can, they can find jobs. They can find jobs. So that's, that's something they can get around. And a lot of them that's not felons, that has done less criminal, I guess you could say, they can find a job a lot easier, because they don't have that felon on them, but they can. And they can also go back to school, because a lot of these are young women, young girls, and they're about 18 on up, they're young. So they can always go back to school, And with a little help, little assistance, you might need a little assistance from the state, but it's worth it, They pay a little money, the state give them a little money for a grant, they can go back to school. They can start their life over.
There's also a need for the transitional housing there as well, so that they can go from prison back into society, because ultimately they do face issues like identity cards.
Right.
They need to get those again, but also, there's barriers, when you have a record, it's harder to get a job.
What are some of those barriers?
Well, especially if they've been in for stealing or whatever, there's a lot of businesses that don't want to bring someone like that and give them a second chance. So they need second chance places, places that a business that would be willing to receive them. And they need the transitional help with their families too, because a lot of them have been away from their children since they were babies. I mean, a lot of these women have babies in prison, and the babies, don't even know them, So they need that transition help, emotionally, to be able to get back with their children and be a good mother. And so it's good to have some instruction as well.
Yes.
Do you find many reoffend?
Yes, like I said. I've talked to them and said they've been in there. This is my third time and this is my second time, and I always say, this is your last time, And the reason why, because they go back and get involved with those same people. And so we try to encourage them to stay away from that. You have a new life now, a brand new start. And so some of them do take heed to that. They take that advice, but there are some that go back because, and another reason, because of the homeless thing too. They get out, the family don't want them, they don't want to have anything to do with them.
So they have a home here.
Yeah, so they know they got friends back in prison, they can do something and go back to prison, and they'll have a bed and a meal, which is so sad. And that's what we focus on the most, to let them know that prison is not your destiny. You have a plan. There's a purpose for your life, and for you to waste it in jail, and they get it. I see them tearing up, and some of the hardest women, in there, they get teared up, and they said, this is right. And it touched me so. One day, a lady, she was telling me about, she said, no one comes to visit me, no one cares. And I said, no, you're not forgotten. And we prayed, and I talked to her, and then on the intercom, they called her